So there's a lot of talk about major disaster scenarios within the prepping community, and most refer to them as the Titawaki-like events. They're also thought of as SHTF events. An EMP is a trending scenario right now, so let's start there. Preparing for an EMP or another SHTF scenario means that we're also likely to be prepared for any lesser disaster that might happen. So it really makes sense to use one of these crisis events as our framework for preparing. When we look at something like an EMP or other crisis events that might take out the entire grid, we generally assume that the grid won't be restored for any reasonable period of time. According to the report from the EMP Commission, as much as 90% of the population could die within the first year, and that would be mostly due to starvation. That makes these sorts of events a whole different animal than the average disaster. Now, most people haven't even thought about these problems, let alone how they're going to deal with them. And so I've compiled a short list of things that will definitely happen during a Titawaki or major SHTF scenario. But before we do that, please remember to like and subscribe. That way, when my new videos drop, you'll get notified. And when I go live, it'll say, hey, he just went live. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we'll talk about is those with chronic medical problems. Unfortunately, these will be some of the very first people to die. Regardless of any reason, many of these people are incapable of surviving without their daily meds. With over 60% of American adults taking prescription drugs of some sort, this can range from diabetes to heart disease to arthritis, cancer, psychological or emotional problems, which are the really scary ones. These kind of people these people are not going to have a good day when their meds run out. The survivors, they're going to only be the borderline cases, the people that were either incorrectly diagnosed from the beginning and been on medications forever, or the people that were only slightly affected by their ailment that the medication was helping. There's actually some study and thought that says that some of these people might actually get more healthy if they get off of the medications, which is a possibility. But and then there's even thought about that they may find natural alternative methods to treating their ailments. But the medicines. Well, let's just look at the next one. The medicines will run out quickly. Speaking of medicines, those that will run out quickly. Pharmacies, are used to receiving shipments every day. So with computerized inventory management systems, they don't need to stock more than a couple days worth of medicines. When those run out, there won't be any resupply. It's just that easy. This goes back to the whole, when the trucks stop moving, everything stops moving. This is going to directly affect the people mentioned above who depend on those medications for the chronic conditions. This directly affects the people we talked about earlier and those people who depend on those medications for the chronic conditions. But it will also affect anyone who becomes ill or gets injured in the aftermath of a disaster. Without the medicines needed to overcome infection, people will die of seemingly inconsequential injuries. Now, whether we like it or not, many of the elderly will die. This is just another subgroup who is highly dependent on those medications. And most people over 50, hopefully not, are taking a variety of different medications. I'm going to say over 65, but that my references say 50. Are taking a variety of different medications for a variety of different medical conditions. I mean, it's very common for the elderly to be on multiple medications as they get older. Those who are borderline cases might be able to overcome the chemical dependency by switching to a healthier diet or doing more physical work, but that's not going to work for everyone. The other big struggle that the elderly will have is that they don't have the strength or stamina to do much of the physical work necessary for survival. In the olden times, in the old days, there were people that would have likely lived with their children, contributing to family, in whatever they could, while, allowing their adult children to do the physical necessary work for the family, farm, or business. Today, these people live in nursing homes or assisted living centers. They're not exactly good environments for being self-sufficient. And when the staff of those facilities is unable to meet the residents' needs, they're going to die. That's just what's going to happen. Next, let's talk about the plagues, plural. One of the things that will definitely happen is that with the lack of sanitation and the inability to get rid of human waste, we're going to start having issues that the same issues that cause the Great Plagues. The lack of proper sanitation, it consists of two things: the lack of proper human waste disposal and the ability to keep ourselves clean. The two together will lead to a plague of some kind. Disease will spread easily and will become harder to treat. Without the availability of proper medicines, which we talked about earlier, and with our medical community overworked, people will start dying off from diseases that they normally would have been easily treated during normal times. Next thing is lots of babies are going to die during birth, and lots of women will die during birth. Women have been having babies, since the beginning, but things are different now. In past days, babies died before taking their first breath or within a few days of being born. There weren't the medical procedures and supplies available that we have today, but, with a major disaster that causes a shortage of medical supplies, we can expect the infant mortality rate to go through the roof. This isn't the only risk I see. Women are going to face a greater risk in childbirth. While there have always been women who died during childbirth, there have been many fewer in modern times due to the technology that we have. A perfect example of this is, women who need an emergency C-section. They won't be able to receive them, and some percentages of those women will die for lack of proper medical care. It's just what's going to happen. Next thing is the wood will not last forever. That's a common misperception that in the prepper community that, well, I'll keep my family warm and cook my meals, and I'll do it all on a wood stove, and I'll cut down all the cherry trees and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? When we all talk about heating our homes with wood, when the SHTF comes, but how many of us had an adequate wood pile, to make it through the winter? What about next winter? How would you restock your wood pile when it runs out and you don't have gas to go fill up your pickup truck? You going to go buy it from the store? No, because the stores aren't going to sell it, and they probably won't be open. You might be thinking that you'll cut trees down in the park, but you won't be the only one that's thinking that. And all those unprepared people will be trying to beat you there because they won't have any firewood either. There's going to be competition, and you should probably think about that. The last thing on the list is the fact that many people, they're just too weak to survive. There are a lot of people who just don't have what it takes to survive. I'm not talking about physical strength here. I'm talking about emotional strength. Our dependence on the infrastructure and supply chain, that we have created makes many of us poor candidates for survival. You and I as preppers have done something about this, but what about everyone else? There will be a lot of people out there, and maybe even within our own families, who can't stand the emotional and mental strain of having their whole world collapse around them. They won't survive because they won't see any value in surviving. They'll just give up. Teens do it right now. How much worse will it be for them when they realize that the things they've dreamed are no longer possible? Remember, easy times make for weak men. It's actually a long adage, and it's right there in front of you. And that's what we're living in right now. All right, I hope I gave you some information to think about, and if you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, I'll leave a few links below so that you can check them out. If there's any bloopers, they'll be at the very end of the video, and as usual, stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye. And if you think you're gonna, and if you, so many buttons. One of these days, I'm going to get this crap right. Maybe later today.